Good morning students. Today we will discuss the thoracic vertebrae. We all know that there are 12 thoracic vertebrae which are identified by the presence of facet on the vertebral bodies. So this is the vertebral body of any vertebra. If we see the description of a vertebra as a whole, it has body, it has pedicels, then it has transverse processes and it has spine. Now for thoracic vertebra, how it is differentiated from the cervical and lumbar is that it has facets which are present on the vertebral bodies. So these facets may be demifacet, they may be complete facet. So these facets just, you can say, help us to identify that this is the thoracic vertebra. Now if we see the description, that there are some vertebrae which are typical one and the other they are atypical. So if we see the number, that is 2nd to 8th vertebrae, they are typical one, and 1st, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th they are atypical. Now coming to the description of a typical vertebra, as I have told you that typical vertebra has a body which is heart shaped and body has two demifacets. You can see the two demifacets, they are present. Upper one is known as superior costal facet and the lower one is known as inferior costal facet. The superior costal facet articulate with the corresponding rib, means if it is the 4th thoracic vertebra, it is going to articulate with the 4th rib. Now this is the superior costal facet and this is the inferior costal facet which is going to articulate with the next lower vertebra, rib. So this is the description of the body of the typical thoracic vertebra. Now coming to the vertebral arch. Now this whole is known as the vertebral arch. How this vertebral arch is formed? It is formed by the pedicels, it is formed by the laminae, it is formed by the transverse processes, it is formed by the superior articular processes and inferior articular processes and spine. So starting from the anterior side, so these are two pedicels, these are two transverse processes, then superior articular facet, inferior articular facet and spine. So this is the vertebral arch. Now coming to the transverse process. Now transverse process is long and thick. Anterior surface near the tip bears a facet, you can see here. So that is going to articulate with the tubercle of the rib of the seam number. Now if we see this facet, in upper 6 thoracic vertebra, this facet is basically concave, but in the lower 6 vertebra, this facet is concave. So that I will show you in when we discuss the lower thoracic vertebra. So rest of the vertebra, that is in the lower one, if we see this facet is basically flat and this facet is facing upward and laterally and slightly forward, you can see. So this is the description of this. Now if we come to the attachment on the transverse process, so important ligament attached on the transverse process is costo-transverse ligament, because rib is going to articulate with the transverse process as well as with the body. So costo-transverse ligament is attached, which has further, you can say, subdivisions as lateral, superior and inferior costo-transverse ligament. So these are the important ones. Now coming to the spine. The spine is long and directed downward and backwards. Now this superior articular facet is basically, this is the superior articular facet, it is facing the posterior side, that is back side of the vertebra, and inferior articular facet, it faces the forward, you can see. So it is facing forward and these two facets, they are facing posteriorly. Now if we see the vertebral foramen, it is small and circular. So this is the description of a typical thoracic vertebra. So how we identify the typical thoracic vertebra? One important point is, so there are two demifacets which are present on the vertebral body. This is the easiest way to identify the typical thoracic vertebra. Superior demifacet is for the corresponding same rib and the inferior one is for the rib which is one number lower than the this thoracic vertebra. So this is the basic differentiating point which differentiate the typical vertebra from other vertebra. Now coming to the first thoracic vertebra. Now how the first thoracic vertebra is basically differentiated? If we see in both these, you can see this is again the typical one, two demifacets they are present. But if we see the first thoracic vertebra, I want to tell you that in that the superior facet is circular and lower is demifacet. So I am just showing you in the typical vertebra, because at present I don't have that T1 vertebra. So I just to make you understand that the demifacets which are present on the vertebral bodies. So in first thoracic vertebra, which is atypical one, in that the superior this costal facet is complete, and lower one is the demifacet. So spine is long and horizontal. Now coming to the next atypical vertebra, that is 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. How they are differentiated. Now in 9th thoracic vertebra, there is only one facet, that is which is the demifacet. So it has a single demifacet which is present on the vertebral body. You can see here. Clear? So there is one single demifacet which is present on the body, which is seen in the 9th vertebra. Now in 10th, 11th and 12th, if we see the 10th, 11th and 12th, these vertebra have complete facet. You can see a complete facet is present on the vertebral body. You can see here complete facet. So single facet but complete. Now how we differentiate the then T10, 11 and 12? In T10 vertebra, you will see the facet on the transverse process. So you will see the facet on the transverse process, which is basically flat one. You can see here. So this is the point, and in T11 and T12 there is no facet on the transverse process. You can see. Clear? Now next differentiation is how we differentiate the 11th and 12th vertebra then. Now if we see the body of the T12th vertebra is like lumbar vertebra, and body of the thoracic vertebra is like you can say thoracic vertebra is just like, it is just typical thoracic vertebra. It is just identifying, or it is similar to that thoracic vertebra, but this is of lumbar type. You can see. So these are the differentiating points, and between the 10th, 11th and 12th. First is, I want to tell you, I want to repeat that in T1 there are two facets. So one complete facet and one single facet. That is, complete facet is on the upper side of the body, and incomplete, that is demifacet, on the lower side. Then for 9th rib, there is only 9th vertebra, there is only one facet, that is demifacet, which is present on the body. That is important. That T10 and 11 and 12, how we differentiate these vertebra? In T10 you will see the facet on the transverse process, that is not present in T11 and T12. So this is out then. Then T11 and T12, in T12 the body is like lumbar vertebra, and in T11 it is like thoracic vertebra. So these are the differentiating points of thoracic vertebra. Now coming to the ossification. Now this vertebra is basically ossify from 3 primary center and 5 secondary. Primary center is one for body and one for each half of the vertebral arch. I told you, for vertebral arch, the part is pedicel, then laminae, superior articular facet, inferior articular facet and transverse processes. So one for each vertebral arch is there. Now two half of this vertebral arch, they fuse posteriorly during first year of life. Fusion, it happens posteriorly. Now later on, the fusion with the centrum or body is called as synchondrosis. Initially both the halves they fuse with each other, later on they fuse with the body. Now the body fusion, it occurs by the age of 3 to 6 years. So this is important. Now secondary centers, one for upper end, one for lower end, one for transverse process, that is each transverse process, and one for spine. So these secondary centers, they appear by the age of 15 years and fuse with the rest of vertebra by 25th year. So this is all about thoracic vertebra. Thank you very much.